And so I really try to implement those things in my upbringing into business. And so for me, if I'm going to spend money doing something, an effort, getting a whole team working toward an upgrade event or the beta trial that we did where we did the curbside fittings at the beginning of COVID, I wanted it to be extra special or something that people will remember and talk about.
Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the podcast for high-performing hearing care clinics that want to learn the strategies, ideas, and truths behind some of the smartest private practice clinics in the world. Now, time for your hosts, Phil M. Jones and Ollie Luke.
So welcome to episode 2 of the Business of Hearing podcast. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to talk about a British band from the 1980s called Bananarama. Now, you've likely never heard of them. Not many people did. But they had a song called It Ain't What You Do, It's the Way That You Do It. And it kind of went, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And that's what gets results. And I think that epitomizes today's guest because in any industry, but the hearing care industry particularly, I see there's usually 2 types of people. You have business owners and then entrepreneurs. And if their business got closed today and they got told they could not start a hearing care business again, you'll see that the business owners would go and find a position working as an audiologist somewhere, and the entrepreneurs would go and apply the skills to a different industry. And today's guest very much would be on the entrepreneur side. So introducing today's guest, Dr. Julie Hubik from Cornerstone Audiology. Hey, Julie, how are you doing?
Hey, Ollie, I'm great. How are you?
I am good, thank you. So I appreciate you joining us. And I suppose the best starting point is just give us your story. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, that was quite a compliment with the Bananarama band. I'm going to have to look that up. And that is so true. It isn't what you do. It's the way that you do it. I love that. As an audiologist, I was always intrigued with hearing loss from a young age. I tended to find people, or they found me, who had a hearing loss and was really always inspired by their story. And even before I knew anything about hearing aids, I was intrigued to try to connect them to the world around them. So I liked being part of the solution for those people early in my life. And then I also really was wired for business early in life. I was always trying to hustle and make money and overcome objections and things like that. And so I was able to, after graduating with my audiology degree, I worked for an ear, nose, and throat doctor for a little bit, which was really good for me. And I learned a lot there. But I always had this kind of a hunger, I guess, to see if I could do it on my own and be able to really implement some of the things that I wanted to do on my own that I couldn't working for a surgeon who had more clinical needs for my skill set. And so I bravely started doing some research about opening my own practice. And then at the time, my husband had a good job. And so he was kind of an 8-to-5er, and he was going to take care of the day-to-day financially while I could get Cornerstone off the ground. And then suddenly some things happened out of our control, and he lost his job, and we had a newborn baby, and neither of us were employed. And so I really think that Cornerstone took a running start just because we were, I don't want to say destitute, but we didn't have a whole lot, sitting in the bank to last for years and years of figuring this thing out. So kind of a need for necessity and to put food on the table, Cornerstone was shoved into high gear. And I really, looking back on it, I'm super thankful that it happened the way that it did, just because it was a blessing to be able to work so hard and figure it out so quickly.
Amazing. So I had the pleasure of visiting your offices in March 2020, somehow before, like with no consciousness that the world was about to end 20 days later.
Right.
But one thing the big takeaway that I took was like from seeing your patients, from seeing your office, from experiencing everything, you have this real VIP feeling from the way the office feels to the way you interact with patients. And I know these things don't happen by accident. So I'm wondering if you could share some of the purposeful things that you've done to almost develop this premium patient experience.
Sure. I think that it really just goes back to what your philosophy is and what your goals are with your patients. And for me, I think that the most important thing for me in starting a practice was that we took excellent care of our patients, because we wanted to really empathize with their difficulty in hearing and understand from a personal perspective what it's like to actually miss out on important things in your life. Also, kind of understanding where patients are in this phase of life. Now, every phase of life has its challenges, and if you ever are in a phase that you feel like if you can just get to the next one, everything's going to be okay, it probably won't be. So you just have to know that every phase there's going to be good and there's going to be hard things about that phase. But our patients in this demographic are usually, 60 plus. They're grandparents typically. They are frustrated a lot of times because maybe they finally have the money and the time to do the things that they want to do after working for years and years and raising family, but maybe now they can't hear well, or now their health is failing. There's just a lot of frustrating things about this phase of life. And so what we would see a lot would be patients that would come in and they're frustrated in their phase of life. They may be really grumpy. They may be really mad that they're here. But we wanted to offer an experience for them where it could really kind of take the edge off of that frustration, where we can become friends and allies with them immediately, and they kind of begin to let their guard down and trust us, because they know that they can sense that we have their best interest at heart, and hopefully our environment just kind of shows that.
Beautiful. Yeah, because one big thing I took from your office was I felt like I was at a five-star five-star like spa almost, like the furniture, the feel, the size of it, which kind of shocked me. But yeah, from my experience at least, most of the hearing care industry don't put that much time and detail into building an office that has that feeling. It very much feels like a standard office with a few adjustments. What would your advice be to the rest of the industry about the benefits of investing that extra into creating that kind of wow experience?
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be expensive. I don't think you need chandeliers and fancy things. I just think it needs to feel comfortable and warm, and that the person, whenever I go into a business, I am always wowed when it's just the little things are taken care of. The bathroom is clean, the windows are wiped down, there's flowers growing in the pots. It's just like you can tell that the person who's running that really takes care of their business. And that makes you confident to do business with that person, because you feel like that they're on top of everything. And if they take care of their flower bed, they're obviously going to take care of you as well. So I don't think it has to be extravagant. I mean, I think you could even do like a vintage feel, as long as it's classy and warm and inviting. And I almost feel like that it's better if it's not extravagant, just because sometimes patients can walk in and think, wow, no wonder hearing aids cost this much. You need to really be careful that you don't overdo it. But just really, it's more about the little things and the warmness of it than the extravagance of it.
And tell me about, like, obviously COVID aside, what one other thing I took away was the patient get-togethers and events that you had, mainly because they went above and beyond what would typically be expected.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to connect with your patients kind of outside the office, because you want to be very personal and real to them. You want to become kind of a friend to them. If they're coming back every 4 months for a cleaning and then they're repurchasing hearing aids every 3 years, you should really know who they are and what's important to them. And so we created something called Elite Patients many years ago. And what classifies an elite patient for Cornerstone is that they have purchased more than one time, or them and their spouse are both patients, or they refer their friends. So when every month we pull patient referrals, anytime they're referring their friends, they get marked as elite. So they're going to get more VIP treatment when they come back. So these patient events, we do them annually. I used to do like a Christmas party every year and do a plated dinner, but have found more success even over the past few years, and more of like a springtime patient event that's on a patio with live music and like a taco bar. We do door prizes. We give away prizes. We call patients out and praise them in public. Basically, if they have referred several people or if they've done something extraordinary, or of course, we usually tell them ahead of time, but we do a lot to kind of connect with them. Our staff is instructed to mingle really well the whole time. And say hi to people and check on people. We also clean hearing aids and have batteries there on the spot if somebody were to need something while we're there, just to really make them feel appreciated. And it's been good over the years. We've had patients kind of stand up in the middle of it and want to talk and say how great we are. And usually we schedule 3 or 4 evals from the dinner, and we hand out friends and family cards at the dinner and give people kind of a door prize for coming, and they take away friends and family cards. They just walk away. The goal is that they walk away thinking that we're the greatest thing ever.
Amazing. And I always think that the perfect opportunity at them events is invite some of your tested not sold along and make sure they're like each of them are sat on one table with a group of your raving fan patients. There's no way they're not walking away without becoming a patient of yours.
A great idea.
Like one thing I think of when I think of the little things that you do to maximize experiences, when this kind of COVID thing went crazy and you kind of pivoted to doing a lot of curbside stuff, whereas
Right.
many, once again, just said they were doing curbside and found a way around it. You were doubling down on what are the little touches that will make the difference. And things that jumped to mind was like a drinks menu upon arrival, and bringing out new hearing aids with a big balloon attached to it. Just give me your thoughts on the little touches, because they often go unnoticed, or they're often, many people don't bother to go to that level of care. And I just want to know from your experience, how have them little touches compounded to make a big difference?
Sure. Well, everything we do to get people in the door costs money. It's a line item on your expenses for your P&L. Whatever you're going to do, whether it's a direct mail piece or whether it's an upgrade letter or something to get people to take action and generate revenue for you, it costs you money to make that happen. So my belief in that, and I'll quote my father here, who drilled a lot of things into me, and I hear his voice in my head regularly, used to say, don't be a half-ass. And he drilled that in me on everything. Like, go hard, no matter what you're doing, go all out. You should really, work your hardest at whatever it is that you are trying to do, whether that's academics or business or caring for someone. And so I really try to implement those things in my upbringing into business. And so for me, if I'm going to spend money doing something, an effort, getting a whole team working toward an upgrade event or the beta trial that we did where we did the curbside fittings at the beginning of COVID, I wanted it to be extra special or something that people will remember and talk about. One of the books that I learned about from Phil years ago was Talk Triggers. And that's a great book. I can never still figure out exactly what my particular talk trigger is, but my goal was to make everything we do a talk trigger, make it memorable, make them walk away telling their friends about it. So in the middle of COVID, when we did the curbside fittings and patients aren't coming into the office and we go outside with a gift box that had a helium red balloon attached, and that cost me, 50 cents to add a balloon to every package. It wasn't a big expense, but the impact that it had was great, and people are still talking about that. I just think, who doesn't want a red helium balloon? That's so fun, and it's 50 cents. Why wouldn't you do that? So for me, in working through all of these campaigns, if you go 100% all out, then when it's over and it tanked, then you don't wonder if it was because you didn't go all out, but if you go the whole way through and you did your very best and you lose, at least you know that you gave it everything you had and you don't need to do it again because it didn't work. But so I don't want to hold back. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it big.
I love it. And of course, without your team being there to also drive these things, then nothing could move as you want it to. I suppose this leads us on to the people that fuel your business, and I'd love to know how you have developed kind of your culture. And I suppose the best way to drill this down is, what are the 3 non-negotiables that somebody has to have in order to be part of the Cornerstone Audiology family?
Yeah, I love my team. They are the best. They're wonderful people. We have a great time at the office, and it's taken me a long time to get here. This is, I finally have kind of the dream team, and I wouldn't trade them. They're amazing. So I did some thinking. I'm glad you gave me this question ahead of time, because I had to really kind of think that through on what is it that makes our team our team. Again, I hear my dad's voice in my head when growing up, he used to say that there are givers and takers in the world. And it's so true. You can look around and see in your world, man, she is a giver. Like, she's always doing something for somebody else. And so I want to hire givers. I want people on this team to be thoughtful and to be a team player legitimately, to really look and see what's going on in the lives of their other coworkers and what they can do to help and pitch in. Like, if somebody's running behind with a patient, somebody else can jump in and grab them and take care of them, that nobody's out for number one, that everyone's a giver. So I would think that would be number one. Fun is really important to me. I always want to know when I hire someone if they have a sense of humor, because you spend so much of your time at the office. And if you're not having fun, and it's not always a party here, don't get me wrong. We work hard, and there are some days that are rough, but for the most part, everyone gets a kick out of the same kind of things. We can laugh together. Patients in this demographic do some funny stuff. And it is really great to be able to hang out together and get a hard laugh. And so we are all pretty funny here, and we all have a good sense of humor and quote movies and make fun of each other. It's pretty great. The third, I would say, and this is really important to me, is that nobody on this team is really above anything. There's nobody that is too big for their britches, as they say in West Texas. One of my examples is that, and this has happened in a small business, the toilet overflows. Anyone on this team would grab a plunger and go to work. I mean, it doesn't matter to me how much education you have. If you're not willing to get your hands dirty, like, you can't really work here. So that's super important, that we would pretty much do anything for anybody, that we are fun, and that we are not above any task.
Nice. And I think that's a powerful exercise, what you did there, to list the 3 big, almost non-negotiables, or the 3 big steps of your culture. I think everybody should make the effort to do that, because it just changes your hiring decision once you've got it down on paper. And it also allows you to attract the people you want and repel the people that you don't want. So that's really awesome.
True. Yeah. You can look back at people that didn't work out in your past and pull these 3 things and be like, oh, well, she's not a giver. I mean, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So when you say, do they fit the culture, you kind of need to define that and see if they do or not.
Perfect. And with each of these podcasts, one thing we want to do is really drill down on a specific strategy that you do particularly well. And one thing from my perspective that I see a lot of in the hearing care industry is when it comes to driving new patients or new patients opportunities, nobody really knows what to do. They want to send another mailer, or they'll try and spend more money on paid traffic because they know it's the new shiny thing and it's going to work well for them, or Facebook ads, but they don't particularly have a strategy to go and get patients. And one thing that you've done that is super smart is your Hear Better, Live Better program. So I'm wondering if you could give us an intro into, I suppose, where this idea come from and just an overview of how it works.
Yeah, so this is still a work in progress. I'm still fine-tuning it, and we might need to follow up later with the final, protocols and things like that. But this has been an idea that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and there's been a lot of trial and error that have come with it. But basically, the idea came from when a patient would come in and they had a hearing aid benefit through their health insurance, and their health insurance was provided by their employer. Then I wanted to know who else at your office needs hearing aids, which led me to do a lot of research regarding how important it is to hear well in the workplace. There's some great research out in our field about, amplification and hearing aids in the workplace when people need hearing aids and have a hearing loss and they're working and they don't really even know that that's a problem, that they could cost their employer a lot of money. And another reason that I thought of this was I had a patient who worked in the automobile industry buying and selling vehicles and would listen to the motor before buying a used vehicle to resell to hear, because he was very well trained in listening to certain, vehicles and knowing what he's listening for, if there's a problem with the engine or things like that. And he was missing out on things because he couldn't hear that without his hearing aids. Another one who was an administrator in a school who was in a lawsuit with a parent and was missing information in the courtroom because he couldn't hear. He was having to ask another employee to report back what the judge was saying during the middle of a hearing. And it just got me to thinking that we really need to do a better job of educating employers about a simple hearing screening that they could provide, that we could do for free for patients in their organization to see if there's a hearing loss or not. So it's still a work in progress, but it's been really great. And yeah, we have taken it and it's going good right now.
Nice. So to drill down a little bit into this, how do you get the attention of local employers? What's your route through the door with them?
It varies. I would say I would start with the Chamber of Commerce if you're involved in the chamber and get the word out that way. We have, in some of our satellite locations, we have a chamber involvement as well as Rotary has been pretty efficient there. I am in Lubbock. It's a little larger than these satellite offices, and our chamber is a little bit larger. And we also have competition in our chambers. So I'm kind of hesitant to throw it out that way there, but I have a lot more personal contacts that have been good for me. So I'm in some different groups, like leadership groups, and I've been able to talk to some of my fellow business owners in those groups to get them to let me come and screen their employees. And so it's just a matter of really personal connections. I would go through your database and just look through benefits and see also when you fit someone who has a benefit, if you can get the HR person's name from that workplace, then hopefully you can get a meeting with them and just kind of go through how great it is to be a part of this program. It doesn't cost them anything, and we offer a discount if the patient purchases, and then we go in and do free hearing screenings on all their employees.
Amazing. And just to add to that, there's a really good tool. So if you're ever looking for a specific person's contact address, for example, a HR person in a specific company, there's a Google Chrome plugin called Rocket Reach. And if you go to their LinkedIn profile and hit the little button on your Google Chrome, it will find all their email addresses from their company email address through to their personal one to give you specific contact information for pretty much anybody you want to get through the door with.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a free tool. It's awesome. And so just to get a further understanding of this, do you communicate the results with the employee and not the employer, or both, or how does that work?
Yeah, I do. I don't tell, that's a HIPAA violation. You can't tell the employer what their results were from their employees' test results. But the employee gets an email immediately and a notification after their screening that lets us know if they passed or failed. And then we let them know right then. But we don't communicate the results to the employer at all.
Gotcha. And how do you invite them in so if they failed, how do you invite them in for an appointment whilst being, I suppose, as least disruptive to their workday as possible, given the circumstance?
Yeah, we try to get them scheduled right away and right at the time of the screening. So we take our scheduling software with us, or if they don't allow us to do that, then we might print off our schedule with some time slots available. And then we try to get them scheduled immediately. We created a little document that explains the top 5 reasons to get a diagnostic hearing check after you fail a screening. And so we talk about how it might be wax, or just it's a basic overall health screening that you should have more diagnostic information if you fail a screening. So we talk about that with them, and then usually they schedule right then. And if they don't, then we put them in a kind of a marketing campaign where we are sending them emails and calling them back pretty regularly.
Amazing. And from your experience up to now, how many of the people that have failed have then gone on for a full diagnostics?
I'd say about 75% of them.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
Given that you've been going through trial and error and learning the lessons from this, what piece of advice would you give to somebody that's considering also putting this into their business that would probably save them some of the pitfalls that you've been down?
There's a lot of moving parts with it, so you've got to get new business, and then you've got to get them to sign up, and then you've got to schedule the screening, and then you need to market to the ones who don't come in. So there's just a lot of little ways to drop the ball along the way. And I would say you need to either really map that out so that you don't drop the ball, or you put somebody else on your team that's really staying on top of everything. I think that we've kind of got it down now, but it took a little bit, and we dropped a lot the first year or so. The other thing is that every year you go back and to do the screenings again for those employer groups that signed up. So you need to have that on the calendar and make sure you don't miss that next year's screening.
Amazing. So thank you so much for joining us today. I do have two final questions that we're going to ask everybody at the end of these interviews. And I haven't told you about these because I think they'll be better when prepared.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's how it is. First question is, what advice would you give to, let's say, 20-year-old Julie Hubik?
Regarding just business in general?
Well, yeah, regarding what you know now, what would you go back and give to your younger self?
That's Ollie. I don't like surprises.
Ta-da!
I would say just do it. I mean, don't be scared. Like there are risks involved in everything, but if you're smart, if you can, get through school and stay out of debt and be wise with your choices, I think that you should take some risk. And to try to figure out what you enjoy and what you're good at and just do those things. So there's times in a smaller business where you have to kind of do it all, but the goal should be to work toward, maybe I'm giving this advice to myself now. Just do what you're good at and try to figure out to pour your energy and do the things that you love and the things that you do well, and try to figure out how to get out of doing the things that you hate or don't do well, is what I would say.
Amazing. And what would your piece of advice be to, let me rephrase this question. You must look at the hearing care industry and you must see common mistakes that you would say you've overcome that many others make. What's the first one that comes to mind?
I would say your database is a gold mine, that all of these things, like we talked about earlier, you don't really know what to do to get people in the door and to get a new patient. That's because nothing that you do works. It doesn't work to send a direct mail piece. It doesn't work to spend thousands of dollars on a TV commercial. It just doesn't work. So I would say really, really think through your database and divide them into buckets and figure out how to stay in front of them and what you want them to do, and then try to create smaller, manageable campaigns that are happening very frequently. Just like, Orange and Gray has designed a lot of that, but just to really take that and run with it, because that's really what's going to make the difference.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I suppose the final thing is, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about you or reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I think just email me. My email is just drhubik@cornerstoneaudiology.com, and Hubik is Hubik. So you can just email me, and if you want to, schedule a call or something, we can chat.
Awesome, Julie. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
And there we have it. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Hearing podcast. Make sure you subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode goes live. If you're feeling kind enough to share your experience and leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. And if you want to learn more, then go to www.orange-gray.com for article, guides and trainings specifically written for high-performing hearing care businesses. We look forward to speaking to you again soon.